There was a pretty mainstream uh, punk rock song using the word kerfuffle in the early 2000s. Ah, simpler times. Much simpler times. That would be one good Charlotte, for those who are wondering. Right? I'm gonna waste my time becoming another casualty of society. Right? That's good Charlotte, right? Good Charlotte, oh, I'm becoming another victim of. Oh, actually, no, it's not. I'm thinking of a separate song. Uh, Standing on the corner, and now this is really gonna bother me. Talking all that kerfuffle. By the way, Fat Lip. Dude, of course, it's Sum 41 and Fat Lip. Only Sum 41 would bring us such nonsense. Kerfuffle. That's in the same song where I heard the word abortion in pop culture for the first time. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't the first time, but it was the first time I had heard it. So, in other news, we're in trouble, folks. The day has come. The day has come to take a deep breath, align your chakra, and understand the fact that polite society is over, my friends. The Republicans have the votes. They are not gonna not nominate somebody. They're not just gonna wake up and have morals or anything. So, or like care about the just blatant, like out and out hypocrisy that they're gonna do here. They don't care, and so you know, here's to the end of the world. We are staring into the face of uh literally 40 to 50 years of Republican dominance. They have completed the project, folks. Our project what is get people health care, um, get people education so that they can elevate their status in society and become more valuable members of society. Uh, Fix our immigration system so we're not, completely immiserating people and torturing people on the border. Uh, Raise taxes on rich people so we don't have an insane accumulation of wealth at the top. And the list goes on and on. That was our project, and the Republican project was to flip the Supreme Court in it and our entire judiciary, in fact, plus basically every state house and all the governorships, so that who cares what the federal government does, because they thought 40 or 50 years ago the federal government sucks. It's too big. We don't like it. We don't want to work within it. And then they actually acted on that for about 4 decades, and now they own literally every piece of local government that you could possibly imagine. And now they will have completed the, like witch's brew that they need to dominate society, even though a Republican president has not won the popular vote since Ronald Reagan in their first term. Even though that's the case, they will now control basically everything. And now, the thing about it is yes, you have progressive people coming in and, like more and more lefties running for office and stuff like that. But the amount of time that it will take to accumulate enough of those people, and then to do all the things that you have to do to bring this back into balance, let alone bring it to the left, but just bring it back into like some sort of sane, like 50-50 situation like the Supreme Court is supposed to be. Oh, dude. We could be working on this for 30 years. I mean, God knows these people have. I mean, we could be working on this for basically all of my lifetime. Now, who knows, right? I mean, here's the thing: the Supreme Court justice is going to be seated. That's done. That's over with. There is nothing that we can do. We can slow it down, and by we, I mean people who would prefer, which is the majority of the country, to not seat a Supreme Court justice in this climate. That's the majority opinion in the country, whether you're a Democrat or Republican or whatever. So, sure, it can be slowed down. You know, there can be some procedural steps taken to, like, gum up the works a little bit and make it sort of difficult. But if Mitch McConnell has the votes, Mitch McConnell has the votes. And Mitch McConnell has the votes because Mitt Romney is going to, not care about hypocrisy or just being a jackwagon. He's just going to, like everybody was jumping up and down. I know that, and here's the thing. I bought this for a couple of minutes where I was like, you know what? I don't think Romney's going to vote. And between Romney, Murkowski, and the one in Maine, Collins, I thought maybe, I'm kind of doing a little bit of a vote count in my head, and I'm thinking, it's going to be close. But if McConnell has 50, he'll just call Mike Pence for 51. So it's done. There's nothing that can be done about it. You need to just water off a duck's ass, get used to the fact that, like, we're going to have a 6-3 conservative court where Brett Kavanaugh is the swing vote. Like, Brett Kavanaugh is the, like, middle of the row on the Supreme Court now. So, So just get used to that idea. That is going to happen. So taking into account that is the world we're going to live in. Okay, so what do we do now? Right? What is the next political step that could be done? Well, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but to expound on it, I've been doing some reading on it. So to expound on it today, you can, in theory, slow this thing down until the election, right? If Joe Biden wins, which is still a big, giant if, I don't know, like, this could have screwed us electorally also. If Joe Biden wins, then, in theory, you can make the case to the American people that they have not seated somebody yet. This is a lame duck session. If they do this, then we are going to pack the court. And I feel like we are going to abolish the filibuster, we're going to run these motherfuckers, and we're going to pack the court. I think that you could make that case to the American people, and even, you could get 60 or 70% to understand that, like, there is no other choice. Because these people are literally, just screw it, we're putting in a judge in a lame duck. But I don't think they even have the nuts to do that. So, probably what is going to happen is they're going to seat somebody before the election. And then even if Joe Biden wins, they're not going to threaten to pack the court. They're not going to, they're not this money so that we can run against them. Aren't they bad? They would rather do that. Clearly, because that's all they're doing on every other issue. But if we were playing, like, World According to Kyle, what should we do now? Okay, then you block this for as long as possible and try to get it to a lame duck session, right? You try to force their hand, and see how the American people react to a Republican majority Senate that has lost the majority. Because I'm playing out the scenario of, like, Joe Biden wins the presidency and we flip the Senate, right? Okay. Then if that's the case, you're going to have a Senate minority that is holding a lame duck session of Congress to appoint a Supreme Court justice, which is a lifetime appointment. with the right messaging and being able to get the word out there on that, you could move the American people against that in general. I think they're against it anyway, but I think you can make a very big deal about it. Then from there, right? Let's say they move forward with still trying to appoint their judge between election day and inauguration day. And this is assuming that we haven't had any insane chaos surrounding the election, and we're not just knee deep and completely fucked counting mail-in votes and dealing with voter fraud and all that, or fraudulent behavior, not necessarily voter fraud, but fraudulent behavior. So let's say that all happens and they nominate somebody. Then the Democrats, through that process, need to make it very, very, very clear that, fine, we will accept your premise that you guys have the majority, the American people have elected you as a majority, because that's what Mitch McConnell's saying, is like, the American people, when they last voted en masse in 2018, gave us a Senate majority, and so for it is therefore it is the will of the American people that we do this. What the Democrats have to say, if they're going to quit on everything else, and we're going to just acknowledge that this is going to happen, because Mitch McConnell and the Republicans are just ideologues that are not going to pay attention to any sort of hypocrisy or whatever. They're going to get it done. If you acknowledge that, then your messaging needs to be, fine, we buy your premise that you are allowed to seat somebody. We're not going to vote for him. But if you have the votes and you want to seat somebody, then we will have the hearings. You guys confirm him, do your deal. But as soon as we have a Senate majority, we will abolish the filibuster, pack the court, and if we have a Democratic president come January, then we are going to have him review Marbury versus Madison. And the entire concept of constitutional review. And you make that case. And you say, look, fine, you want your judge? That's fine. Then you better hope you win the presidency, because this is horseshit. You guys are hypocrites, and we're just not doing this anymore. You guys have no respect for the process. You have no respect for the way the government works. And they should have done this years ago, to be honest. But they should have done this when Newt Gingrich was running around. But it doesn't matter. Now you got to do it. Right? So, come January, hopefully, whatever that word means anymore, we're inaugurating Joe Biden. Joe Biden comes in and does that. And we get real court reform. We're not gonna. Let me preface this by saying none of this is going to happen. This is just the world according to Kyle. If the Democrats really wanted to defeat this nomination and really wanted to do something effective, totally legal, totally effective, and very and politically intelligent, then they would do this. But they're not going to, because they don't want to do any of those things. They want to raise money bitching about Trump. I mean, think about this, right? Just as an apparatus, the Democratic Party. Think about how much money the Democratic Party has raised, probably over the last 18 months, right? I'm vaguely familiar with the numbers. I don't have any exact figures to give you. I do know that they raised $10 million for one race the night that RBG died. So, I mean, you take that and extrapolate it across all the wild-ass shit that Trump has said and done for the last, 18 months, and they're sending out emails to collect money every time he says something wild-ass. The amount of money that has rolled into the DNC, which you've got to imagine, right, is paying consultants, large consultancy firms, large marketing firms, a large portion of our industry in this country is in politics, because it's a big giant fire hose of money every time there's a race, and every little dipshit that thinks they can market or thinks they can get somebody elected starts a consultancy firm, charges 6 figures a year, and works for, dip ding for Congress or whatever every 8 years or every 4 years or every 6 years or whatever. And so these consultancy firms and these big marketing firms and all this bullshit are supported by all this money that's coming in, right? And ultimately, they're the ones that are advising these politicians. And they're the ones that are ultimately making these decisions. I mean, no matter what you think about Trump, he's not if no one told him anything, right? He would just go on Fox and Friends in the morning and talk about wild shit that happened in the White House. Like, he wouldn't talk about, like, international affairs or, like, he would just go. We know that when left to his own devices, he'll just go on Fox and Friends and talk about how everybody's so unfair to him and the world is so unfair and Donald Trump never gets treated fairly and yada, yada, yada. That would be his entire presidency. It's just constant. Like, he would call into Fox and Friends 3 times a week, 4 times a week, have an hour with them where he just complains about how everybody's mean to him. He would never talk about, like, Iran, global warming, the 1619 Project, racism, riots. He would never talk about any of that stuff. Somebody's telling him to talk about that. Now, he has his own opinions about them, sure, because he's tuned into Fox News all day, but he's not making those talking points up, or he holds no, like, public opinion of it, like, public position on anything. That's all given to him on a piece of paper, and Joe Biden the same way. And the people who are writing that down on a piece of paper and handing it to Donald Trump and Joe Biden, they're part of this consultancy class. And these people are not going to do anything that is going to ultimately put them out of a job. Because here's the thing, Joe Biden wins, the vast majority of Joe Biden's, like, core base goes back to brunch. They go, whew, we avoided apocalypse. We avoided Cheeto Hitler, and fuck it. I'm still making 6 figures. I still live in a nice house. The American dreams are working for me. So good thing. Joe, do a good job. Kamala, do a good job. Yes, queen them to death. And see you again in 4 years when it's time for me to do politics again. Where the rest of us are like, no, these people have to do things to actually change people's lives. Because otherwise they are going to deal with, like, mass misery bigger than we have now. And, like, the conditions surrounding a revolution. And so the DNC is looking at this as like, okay, over the last 18 months, we have watched Donald Trump just spiral out of control. And the most recent thing that happened in the hellscape that is 2020, which is RBG's death, we raised millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of dollars in a very short period of time. So is it more lucrative to us to actually work our asses off, get Joe Biden elected, have Joe Biden in the White House, or is it more lucrative to us to run a campaign and try to beat Trump, but never go for the throat, or never, like, I read an article the other day, I think it was in The Intercept, where they were talking about how, like, they contacted multiple Biden surrogates within the campaign. I mean, people who would know, and asked them just what their ground game was like in Michigan. Now, granted, we're in the middle of a pandemic. There's not much that you can do on the ground in a campaign. However, everything else in life has kind of gone back to fairly normal in most areas. So why aren't we out campaigning? They can do the census. Or why aren't we phone banking? Or why aren't we putting yard signs out? Right? Like, where is that coming from in Michigan? They asked to all these Biden surrogates. One of the quotes from a Biden source was, "What do you mean by ground game?" They didn't even know what it meant. And as we all know, the election was arguably decided by 4,000 voters in Michigan last time. That's how close. Now, granted, I don't know how Hillary Clinton's America would have responded to coronavirus and the insane shit that has gone on since Donald Trump has become president. Absent of Donald Trump. I just mean like the world stuff that has gone on, right? I don't know how Hillary Clinton's America would have responded to climate change. I'm not optimistic. I'm not optimistic about those outlooks, but I don't think it's insane to say that a Hillary Clinton presidency would have saved millions of cases of COVID, tens of thousands of lives, at the very least, right? I mean, perhaps thousands of lives in Puerto Rico after the hurricane. Maybe a countless amount of, it's hard to prove, a negative or whatever, but I just can't imagine a world where, like, the numbers are the same and the outcomes are the same had Hillary won. Yeah, I mean, life would be worse in other ways. But, competence is was kind of the only thing Hillary was running on. And if the difference between 200,000 deaths and, excuse me, 50 or 60,000 deaths is just competence and acknowledging reality, like, I think we all have to say that, like, Hillary was the preferred option then, right? I mean, if your politics are about risk mitigation, so they don't have any sort of ground game. They're not pounding the pavement. They're not, just blanketing places with ads and letters and all that bullshit. They're not running some sort of, like, insurgent, exciting campaign. And the reason that they're giving for that is, well, we want Trump to be in the spotlight and fail in front of the American people, and therefore, like, we look like a better option. Here's the problem with that. He's doing everything that his party wants. Literally everything. Like, he's doing everything that his party wants. He's about to get another Supreme Court nomination where he's going to nominate that lady who they all love, Barrett, or whatever her last name is. They are convinced. I mean, there was another story that was like, I'm supporting Trump. Here, let me see if I can find it. Voters on construction site. Trump vote. I don't know where this is. I think it was in Philadelphia. Or not Philadelphia, but Pennsylvania, sorry. This is worth it, I promise. Anyway, I can't find it, but basically the voters said like they were asking, they went to a construction site, and I think it was in Pennsylvania, and they talked to these construction workers, and these construction workers were largely pro-Trump voters, and or largely Trump voters, and they asked them, like, why just give us a little bit of insight about how you think politics is going. They weren't trying to, I don't think they were trying to like expose how dumb they were or like anything like that. I don't think they were trying to like own them or anything. I just think that they kind of presented it to them as like, tell us how you think politics are going. We're trying to interview some people who support Trump and we want to understand. And so these people were very honest, and they were like, okay, yeah, sure, this is why I support him. And the answers were hilarious. Like one guy says he fixed healthcare and he got China to pay us back. And what? Or like there was a guy that said well, he's finally getting stuff done. He got the wall built. He's he's cutting through all the red tape. Stuff like that. The wall's not built. The wall's not started, really. The wall's hilariously not happening. But these people don't care because they've bought the big story. Once you have bought the big story, because the big story, right, is America should be run like a business. That's the big story. Then the little story under that, the secondary part of that story, is Trump is a great businessman. If you are willing to buy both of those things, then those are so foundational to right-wing ideology and right-wing identity and conservative identity that once you have bought into those two things and allowed your brain to form around those two things so that every way that you see the world is shaped, every way that you see politics is shaped by those two ideas, that is an unbreakable dam. That you could stand there all day and chip away at that with facts and reason and logic and like, hey, Trump's bad, or hey, the system is bad, or whatever, and look at this hypocrisy that the Republicans are doing and all that. It doesn't matter, because people are not going to be able to rationalize until they figure out that those two foundational ideas are irrational. They're not going to be able to rationalize a concept of capitalism where that's not true. Because that's what their daddy told them. That's what every right-wing politician has been saying for 40 years. They've been on message. And you can just look at real-world examples of this stuff. I mean, right. So the theory has been government should be run like a business. We should cut all the red tape. We should make sure that we're saving money. The deficit, blah, blah, keep an eye on the deficit, blah, blah, blah. This has been the big fairy tale, right? We have to keep our house in order, and we need to be efficient. So, therefore, the best leader is a businessman, because the government should be run like a business. Okay, this happened. We elected a governor, Senate, House, judiciary, all majority conservatives in Kansas. Okay, the people of Kansas elected every tier of government conservatives. Within 2 years, they were unbelievably bankrupt. They had slashed Medicaid programs. They had slashed food stamps. They had slashed unemployment. They had literally immiserated the bottom 10-15% of their state, which is largely rural farmers. Completely immiserated these people. Plus defunded their school, defunded their criminal justice system, defunded, you name it. If it's a government service, it got that hacksaw, baby. Kansas teachers were some of the worst paid teachers in the country. All because Kansas was like, government should run like a business. And the response was to elect a shitload of Democrats. Like, that's what has happened since then. This was in early 2000s that this happened. They drove that state into the ground, and there are countless examples of this. I mean, you name a state that's not sitting on a mountain of natural resources like Texas, California, Alaska, and Florida that is run by Republicans. That is not a joke. That is not a complete joke by every metric. Education, revenue, just being revenue positive. These people need the federal government just to pay their bills. These states need the federal government just to pay their bills because they don't have enough tax revenue. I mean, do you think Wyoming has enough tax revenue from the 13 people that live in it to maintain all that land? Let alone all the people who have to work there and all the people who have to, like, be law enforcement there or help people vote or, provide medical care, firemen. I mean, just basic services in states like that. Like, honestly, Kansas, exact same deal. Do you think they're ever going to be able to raise enough tax revenue to support the sort of programs that their citizenry needs? Of course not. So they get bailed out by the federal government every year with the money that they get from blue states, mostly blue states, because that's where everybody lives, is in blue states. And this brings me to right back to the Senate conversation that we were having earlier, which is, dude, if this doesn't explain the fact that if this Supreme Court problem right now does not just lay out for you in clear and uncertain terms how undemocratic the Senate is and as an institution, I don't know that I know what to tell you, man. Like, I don't know that I know what to tell you. The Senate is going to change the fabric of this country basically single-handedly. And they only have the support of like 45% of the population. Like, that's how many people are Republicans. It's about 45% of the population. That's a minority party. That is a minority party in a two-party system. That is a minority party. And when I say population, I mean the people that vote. That is a minority party, and we're being governed by a minority party. Make no mistake. I'm a minority party, the leader of which did not win the popular vote. In fact, lost the popular vote by over 3 million votes. This is why the hand-wringing about voting is pretty disingenuous, don't you think? Like I said, the Republicans have not put somebody in the White House that has won the popular vote running for their first term since Reagan. Bush's daddy? Nope. Didn't win the popular vote. Bush? Didn't win the popular vote. Trump? Didn't win the popular vote. That's 16 years of being, that's 16 of the last 30-something years. Basically half of the last 30 years, we have been under the rule of a minority party that does not represent the interests of the, even, and the Democrats don't either, but even by, like, platitudes, does not represent the policy direction that the majority of Americans want to go in. We know for a fact the majority of Americans support Medicare for all. The majority of Americans support ending the wars. The majority of Americans support raising taxes on the rich. The majority of Americans support free college. The majority of the American public supports gun control. The majority of the American public supports immigration reform. And these are not 51-49 numbers. Marijuana legalization. These are not 51-49 numbers. Most of these are 65-70 percentage points in favor of these policies. This is not a democracy, folks. And this is where wonk nerds will tell me, yeah, we live in a constitutional republic. Okay. Then can both parties stop going on TV 5 times a week and telling me about how we need to preserve democracy then? I mean, because the majority of politicians in this country are just pissing on me and telling me that it's raining, if that's the case. So, the Senate, I mean, I think I read that, like, two. Here, hold on. This one I'm actually going to Google because I know what to Google. Yeah. Okay. By 2040, 20 years from now, 2/3 of the Americans in this country, that is 66%, will be represented by 30 senators. This is a problem, guys. I mean, this is a real problem. I mean, here's the Atlantic. Senators for Kavanaugh, right? So the people who voted Brett Kavanaugh onto the Supreme Court represent 44% of the United States. They seated a Supreme Court justice while representing just 44% of the citizens in this country. Yeah. So California has 40 million people living in it. They're represented by 2 senators. 2. With 40 million people living in it. You know who else has 2 senators? Wyoming. This is a very anti-Wyoming stream for no reason whatsoever. But there 578,000 people live in Wyoming. So that means that the people of Wyoming are represented 80 times more than a citizen of California. I'm sorry, dude, but they're all citizens. Like, regardless of their regional needs, like, that's what you have state governments for, right? You have to provide for people where they live. Like, that's insane. Yeah, I mean, the 10 largest states, right? The 10 largest states have the least white people in them. Pretty much. I mean, that's a decent assumption. But the 10 smallest states have the most white people in them. So Wyoming, Vermont, Alaska, North Dakota, South Dakota, Delaware, Rhode Island, Montana, Maine, New Hampshire. So the 10 smallest states with the most white people in them. Here, I'm going to show you this. Do 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 do. Okay, so the 10 largest states: California, Texas, Florida, New York, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Ohio, Georgia, North Carolina, Michigan, right? Those are largely like high immigrant populations. They're a more diverse population, therefore, like they have more diverse needs and represent a better, a wider breadth of the population, right? Whereas the 10 smallest states: Wyoming, Vermont, Alaska, North Dakota, South Dakota, Delaware, Rhode Island, Montana, Maine, New Hampshire. Those are some of the whitest states in the Union. So not only is the Senate an incredibly undemocratic body, but by proxy, it's also an incredibly racist body because it serves by representation. The House is a much more democratic institution, and it needs reforms also, but it's a much more democratic institution. Our Senate problem is harder to fix. 15 states, only 15 states have passed the National Popular Vote Compact, under which states set in state law a policy that they will give all their electoral votes to the national popular vote winner. Imagine living in a system where this is not the law already. Now, if you wanted to make the argument to me that we keep the Electoral College, then okay, here's how it would work. People vote. After they're done voting, they send all the votes to the electors, and they go, okay, John Smith got 1,000 votes, and John Brown got 1,001 votes. Okay, then we give all our electors to John Brown because he won the state. And then if you still want to do your wonky math and your weird, like, electoral whatever the hell, okay, cool, fine. Like, if your argument is, well, if we do everything by the popular vote, then, you know, California and Texas and Florida and New York will have a say over the rest of the country. Okay, cool. Then keep the Electoral College, but make it a popular vote. Because how is it not? You're telling me that these people can look at the votes and just go like, I'm not really feeling that. I'm going to vote this way. That's insane. Like, the Electoral College, gotta go. Gotta go, fam. We need ranked choice voting as a country. The Electoral College, out of here. Noob. As my son would say. But the Senate, even worse, man. The Senate, even worse. Population to senator imbalance. Yeah, I'm not reading something off the National Review that says the left in the first, like, sentence. Senate disproportionate representation. Yeah. And the thing is, right, is if as a political party you want to run shit on the whole, then the way that you do that is you create a system where you just continuously yell about how the world is literally ending. And the only way that you can do it, that you can change things, is to take the Senate and the Supreme Court. And by the world is literally ending, I mean things like women might be able to make a decision about what to do with their own bodies. Transgender people might be able to just go to the bathroom in public. Gay people might be legally allowed to fall in love with another person and marry them and enjoy the financial benefits that our system lends to regular married people. You know, like corporations might have to pay taxes. We might have to start reversing the effects of climate change and saving the planet. We might move to cleaner, more efficient energy that eventually pays for itself rather than extracting fossil fuels from the ground, both here and in countries that clearly hate us. And we might have to stop bombing brown children that didn't do anything wrong. And that would be the end of the world for these people. And so they run around the country and they scare people in rural areas to go and vote for Republicans because it's Flight 93 and everybody's safety depends on it. And you end up with an incredibly misrepresenting body of the government that is co-equal, that is not even co-equal, that is powerful enough to like whip the president around. And here we are. It's very depressing times, folks. I will tell you. I mean, nothing can be done. Like, even if Joe Biden wins, then what? And the thing about it is, right, this could have been avoided. There were calls from within the legal community, you know, like people who write about this stuff and people who examine this stuff in a historical context. There were calls from these people for Ruth Bader Ginsburg to resign as early as like 2011. I mean, the woman has had cancer since the late 90s. You know what I mean? Like, plus Obama completely caved to the Senate with Merrick Garland and his last nominee. And there's another stolen seat on the court also. And they're going to essentially, I mean, you know, they're going to fulfill their constitutional duty, which they should be able to do, and I would be fine with them doing if it weren't for the fact that they had made a big stink about Obama doing it. And so now they will have stolen 2 seats. I mean, they will have really done the, like, who's on first to Johnny Obama and his whole crew. Because they got the one while he was president, and now they're going to get the one while they're president. I mean, they really, they passed go and collected their $200 here. Or they landed on go and got $400. Like, and to be just so owned like that by, again, a minority party. Like, just a very loud minority party that is very good at politics. Very bad people, but very good at politics. There is just no, like, this is a hole from whence there is no escape. Because as a country, the nominal left, not necessarily the, like, actual left, but the people who say that they're on the left and are in charge, the leftward party, if you will, has abdicated its responsibility to do politics in the name of decency, process, procedure, norms. They have abdicated their responsibility as outlined in the Constitution, not just because the thing is, the Republicans are going to do everything that they can do to get what they want. The Democrats should be willing to at least do that much. But there is just there has been no accountability for this for decades. These people have continuously sold out in the name of norms and in the name of getting along and in the name of bipartisanship. Our government is not supposed to be bipartisan. That's not a good word. Bipartisanism is bad. Bipartisanship is bad. Politics works like, I think this, you think this, so I'm going to come over here and punch you in the face and get what I need to get. Because I believe that this works based on a whole lot of other things. Like, I think it's going to help people. I think it's going to uphold the values of America, or whatever the fuck. Like, these are supposed to be so deeply held beliefs that you are willing to fight for them. And so politics is supposed to be, I'm Mitch McConnell, and I think that we should, allow corporations to dump uranium in our drinking water. Right? And because I think the corporations are people and they deserve to make as much money as possible. Fine. That can be your belief. But it is then Nancy Pelosi's job, or Chuck Schumer's job, or whoever the hell, a leader in the Democratic Party, who knows, right? To come out and say, hey, no, and you're an asshole. And here's 18 reasons why it would make you an asshole to dump radiation or uranium into our drinking water. But they don't do that. They come out and they go, listen, we understand that Mitch McConnell said today that we should dump uranium, and that corporations should be allowed to dump uranium in drinking water. And you know, we've talked to some of our Republican colleagues, and we just think that that is just unacceptable. And the rhetoric coming from the Republican Party is very concerning. Um, these people are coming out and they are saying things that are very upsetting, and that the American people do not support. And someone needs to step in and be the big boy in the room, Republicans. And you guys need to have some honor about you, and you need to respect our norms, and you need to respect procedure and process and polite politics. And if you can't do that, sir, then shame, shame, tut, tut, you're a bad guy. And if you can't do that, shame, shame, tut, tut, you're a bad guy, right? And to that, the Republicans just say, we don't care. We don't care what you and your liberal, like, college educated elite douchebags think about us. We don't care. You can think anything that you want about us. That's cool. We're going to get our Supreme Court justices. We're going to get our Senate majorities. We're going to get our circuit court judges. I mean, we're going to get everything that we want. And you guys can think we're assholes. That's fine, because this is politics. And if I wanted a friend, I'd get a dog. And the Democrats don't play politics that way. They want to woke scold everybody. They want to shame everybody about how uh, they want to play diversity politics with everybody. They want to talk about how this is why there is an opening on the right for morons like Steven Crowder and Ben Shapiro and take your pick, Candace Owens. The failure of the Democrats to actually address shit and actually be political about anything has left open this lane. Hello. I'm on stream. Can I call you back? All right, bye. Anyway, so the Democrats have left open this lane for those people to infiltrate the minds of people who would otherwise be lefties. Because regular people who go, yeah, it would be great to have Medicare for all, and it would be great to have college and all these other policies. Regular people look at that shit, and then they see their lives crumbling around them, and their economic conditions just absolutely sucking ass. And in the face of all that, Democrats put on kente cloths and do a kneel in the Capitol. Or they do some sort of diversity program where if you're a black person born to a descendant of slaves and you live within a certain zip code in Chicago and you fill out these 15 forms and promise to be an entrepreneur when you graduate college, then we'll give you a Pell Grant. And they minority qualification and like white people are bad. White people start at bad and can get good if they say all the right words about minorities and all that bullshit and yada yada yada. And they play those politics, and it alienates people. It alienates white people who would otherwise be lefties and just go like, well, they don't care. If I'm not black, or I'm not indigenous, or I'm not gay, or I'm not trans, or whatever, then they're not doing any policy for me. And even the best, like, big, hardiest lefty is eventually going to be like, well, screw you, dude, if you're not going to do anything for me. And then they turn to places like Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens and Dave Rubin and Jimmy Dore, who get on their stupid web shows and they go, look, these Democrats are supposed to be for you, but they keep doing hypocritical shit. They keep doing hypocritical shit, and they keep making it about wokeness and identity and pronouns. And eventually, those people who could have been lefties who could have been on your side in the support for like Medicare for all and all these other policies, instead end up going down this rabbit hole that leads them right to Fox News in old age. Because they're so alienated by the fact that you are not helping them. And I'm not making an excuse for people being racist or craven in their politics. I disagree with them. But I can understand how they get there. Like, I can understand how, like I used to watch Jimmy Dore. A lot. And I can tell you that that is a gateway to right-wing politics. Because it disempowers you. When all you're talking about all the time is like, it doesn't matter who you vote for, nobody cares, they're just gonna woke everybody to death, it's all about identity. Like, if you keep hitting those bullets over and over and over again for people, eventually they hear that as like, oh, well then my vote doesn't matter, I don't have to participate, and I might as well just be a right-winger. Because at least they pretend to care about me. And so these people make millions of dollars, they sell all sorts of ads and bullshit vitamins and all that bullshit so that they can have a stupid radio show that is viewed by more people than read the New York Times or watch CNN every day. And you wonder why people have brainworms. Because the left has, the elected left in this country has abandoned them since Reaganomics. Reaganomics destroyed the country. The Democrats went, oh, well, we'll just let that be their fault, and we'll raise money and elect people and do nothing about it and just move to the center and negotiate with these people endlessly. And have done nothing about it while people's material lives have disintegrated in front of their very eyes. I mean, you have people who were largely successful that got hammered by a... something that we're going to have to reckon with in the next 10 years is the amazing shift in the housing market after 2008. There are certain geographic trends that took place in 2008 that people aren't paying attention to. You had so many people lose their homes and so many other people buy those homes that the demographics in America have shifted. You could argue that there has not been a greater migratory shift in America since Manifest Destiny. After 2008. Because all the people with money at the time bought up all that real estate and are renting it out. And the people who are living in that look very different than the people who used to live there. And they might not look different, but they're economically different. And by different, I mean more imperiled and shakier. And meanwhile, you had largely people who used to live in urban areas move to suburbs. People who used to live in suburbs move to urban areas. And you had a great shift. There is a great shift that I don't think a lot of people are paying attention to. Not to mention, because of tax incentives and bullshit government handouts and stuff, large corporations picked up and moved. Became more mobile. Apple in Texas. Google in Texas. Toyota to Texas. Everybody out of California. And at a certain point, like, that's going to catch up with us. And a lot of that is going to come in another housing bubble, which is absolutely going to happen. The bubble that is developing in the car loan market, because people are incredibly overextended in car credit, because car credit is some of the easiest credit to fudge and finagle, and there is a direct profit incentive, believe me, in selling cars to people who cannot afford them. And so there is a car bubble. And then there's a credit card bubble. And there's a student loan bubble. And all of these things are creating real economic precarity. You know, we are sliding headfirst like a slip and slide into a depression right now. And that does not take into account the collapse of those four industries. Nor does it take into account the rapid automation that is going on in manufacturing and the retail workspace. So you're eliminating jobs while you're increasing people's debt. I mean, you're basically restructuring society. You are watching the restructure of society in real time, essentially. Because the way that wealth has distributed itself in the lifetime of like 50-year-old people that are living in this country, if you looked at it on the continuum of American economics, it is shocking. It is shocking. Or the continuum of world economics, for that matter. It is shocking. The economic disparity that exists now. I mean, we've heard these numbers over and over and over again. They don't sound like anything anymore because they've been insane forever. But anybody my age or younger is living as part of a generation that will not do better than the generation before them. And that is a recipe for disaster, my friends. You are decreasing the job market through automation and outsourcing, increasing the income inequality between people who have and people who do not, and you are creating and you are making the ability for people who do not have to become people who do have much harder through insane tuition costs, a ridiculous job market that has shrunk to the size of nothing, and is only giving people jobs with advanced degrees, or you get to work in the gig economy. And eventually, you are going to create, and for Americans, this will take a long time because there is an endless amount of air vents in our system to let out pressure, both culturally, economically, and everything else. We have figured out a way to, because there are so many of us and because there is no way to organize everybody, there has been a way for the American system to vent itself over time, to immiserate hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, but the rest of everybody stays pretty quiet. And those air vents are quickly busting. And you are creating, the thing about it is whoever's in government next, even if it's Donald Trump, it is going to be in the best interest of either party to fix the pressure that is on regular people. Because otherwise, as the US loses its global hegemony over the world, as the US becomes less and less of a superpower that it is, and the Chinese gain size and hegemony, you will not have the economic means to take care to be able to fix these problems. Now, that might not be a decade from now, but it might be 50 years from now, it might be 100 years from now, who knows. But if you do not start to mitigate these problems, then you will be faced with an inability to do so because you are no longer the economic hegemony of the world, right? I mean, this is China's entire goal with Belt and Road and the way that they're expanding through infrastructure spending versus exporting war. And that combined with the horrific effects of climate change that are going to displace potentially millions of Americans. Anybody that lives on the coast. I mean, that lives directly on the coast, and that's millions of people. I mean, like 2 degrees hotter and we lose the island of Manhattan. It's underwater. It will not be a viable living place. And we could do that in the next decade. So, I mean, there is alarming shit going on. And the project of an American left is almost not enough anymore. The project of the American left has to be to expand to a global left. A globalist. A globalist cabal. But there is no choice. Because otherwise, capital will just retreat to the next largest place where they can exploit people. That's what you're seeing with China. Capital's just like, well, we can't really exploit Americans so much anymore, so we're going to outsource to China, exploit the shit out of them. When the Chinese figure out that's a problem, then we'll go to Russia or England or Thailand or Africa or come back to America. And they'll be so poor and desperate by then that we'll, expropriate what little wealth is left there. And there is no solution to this other than restructuring basically everything. You could make the argument that back in the 50s and 60s, if somebody had kept their hand on the dial and paid attention and thought more than 5 minutes and $8 of profit ahead of time, then you can make the argument that these reforms never would have been necessary. But unfortunately, it's been 50 or 60 years now, and none of that stuff got taken care of. None of that stuff was done. So the car is broken down, and it's more expensive to fix it than it is to get a new one. So. But it will get better. It will get better. There are promising indicators on the horizon. We have a lot more progressives going into office. And by progressives, I just mean people who support what the vast majority of Americans say they want. That's it. They're not, communists. They're not running to burn the country down or anything. They're literally just running on majority opinions. And so, hopefully, silver lining, Joe Biden wins. We flip the Senate. Then maybe we get DC and Puerto Rico statehood. That puts us at, 4 more Democratic votes to the Senate. Maybe they grow a backbone and we pack the court and at least balance it out. If not, just screw it and overpower it. And then maybe we get some sort of light Green New Deal that starts putting people back to work and invest in our economy, and we maybe do a little bit of tinkering here and there. But even if Joe Biden squeaks this thing out, man, he has to dramatically change the material conditions of the vast majority of Americans, quick, fast, and in a hurry. Because not doing that, in 4 years, we will have Super Trump, the next guy who actually knows what he's doing and is competent. And so Joe Biden, with all this ridiculous rhetoric that he's putting out there of I'm going to be the next FDR, which we know he's not, he needs to get serious about that shit. If the Democrats are serious about electoral viability for the next 30 years, which I think on whether they are or not, then they have to change the material conditions of the vast majority of Americans. And that means things like giving them health insurance, stop sending them to wars to bomb people. You have to do this stuff in the next 4 years, or you will be a loser forever. It will be worse. Don't say I didn't tell you.